fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Chrissie is hilarious.
Chrissie, have you ever heard of the comedian Basha K. Ali?
No, that sounds like something you yell at before you blow up a plane.
Basha K. Ali!
30 seconds remaining.
But you know what, good thing to say, I dabbled in stand-up or something. I haven't been disrespectful to you at all.
I was very confused by the title, Everything Everywhere All at Once, because that's also what we call it when Ash takes off his shirt. I shouldn't be up here. I should be in school on the other side of the ocean. Hello, boys and girls. Welcome to another episode of the Chrissie Mayr podcast. You can listen to this podcast, gosh darn it, we're everywhere. Spotify, SoundCloud, Rumble, Rockfin, Twitter, Twitch, all the places. Before I bring on our fabulous guest, I have some dates to promote. I'm going back on the road. Oh my goodness, the baby is 11 months old, and I said, well, I'm leaving you forever now because comedy is my first love, and you're just my spawn. Just kidding. These are gonna be like quick back and forth gigs. March 29th, I'll be in Fort Wayne, Indiana at the Fort Wayne Comedy Club. Ooh, tickets are on sale right now for that. April 1st, I'm going to be at the Hartford Funny Bone with Jimmy Dore. May 17th, back in Westchester here in New York in Mount Kisco at a little jazz venue called Jazz on Main. I won't be singing. Who knows? Maybe I will get into singing if the material is not working. There's a piano there. August 8th and 9th, I'll be back on Long Island at the Brokerage Comedy Club. October 18th, I'll be back in Ohio for the first time in a few years. Crackpots Comedy Club in Massillon, which is near Canton, Ohio. So for tickets, go to my website, chrissiemayr.com. And as always, if you want me to come to your town, just tweet at me. I don't know. Call venues. Be a pain in the butt. They like that. Okay, cool. I'm very, 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 very excited for today's guest. He's like a real legitimate actor. He's been in tons of movies, tons of television shows. My God, Rambo, Black Hawk Down, Resident Evil Extinction, Bounty Killer. He's probably the most impressive actor I've had on this show. Welcome to the program, Mr. Matthew Marsden.
Oh, thank you so much. That's quite the introduction. I love it.
Ooh,
Thank you.
I actually looked at your bio. I don't do that for too many people. I just wing it.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you. This has been a long time coming, actually.
Yeah, we've been pen pals for, I
Mhm.
feel like, a long, long time. I don't know, maybe a year on
Mhm.
Twitter, just chatting, because you were always somebody I wanted to get on. And I just was like, oh, I don't know. He's kind of a big deal, it seems. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I messaged you for the first time December 14th, 2022. Matthew, would love to have you on my podcast. And you said right away, hey, I would love to do it.
Yeah, no, yeah, nothing like getting right on it, right?
I'm acting like it was this like, oh my God, for years I struggled to get him on. You were like, no, let's do it. And then,
Yeah, I was like, yeah, let's go. Yeah, no, because I love your stuff. So and it was as I was just saying offline, the first kind of interaction I think we had was when that girl, what's her name again?
Angela Bel Camino.
Angela Bel Camino put out this thing where she said, women are the funniest comedians. I mean, look at Sarah Silverman and Amy Schumer. She listed a bunch of people who I don't think are funny at all.
Nobody thinks they're funny.
Nobody does, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the vitriol I saw from women against the female comedians was unbelievable. So I put up that tweet. I put, are female comedians funny? Now, I think they are, clearly, right? I don't think that gender actually in this instance has any bearing on whether or not you're funny. in the same way it doesn't have any bearing on whether or not you're a good actor.
Mm.
And I said yes or no, and then I got attacked by this female comedian, and like it's just the woke just have no sense of humor, which is kind of funny. And I just kept putting, it was a question. It was a question. And they were like,
Calm down.
"Are you misogynistic?" And I was like, "Oh,
For even asking a question, you're a misogynist.
yeah, I mean, it comes with the territory, I think, doesn't it?"
In your experience acting, have you found that men are typically funnier than women, like genuinely?
No, because I think what it is in my experience acting, like professionally, rather than when I was studying it, it's about the material. And I think I was very lucky. So I worked on 2.5 Men, and on
Were
that
you the half?
show,
Were you the half of the man?
I was, yeah, I was the half man. Half man, not quite a full one. Uh, and so that was funny. So I went in for the audition for that. They wanted to meet me to. I had to be the foil to like Ashton Kutcher. His girl.
Wait, so Charlie Sheen was he on that? Were you auditioning for Charlie Sheen's part?
No, so basically, Ashton had got the role, and what they wanted was Ashton had got this girlfriend in it, and they wanted me to be her ex-husband. And I'd
Oh,
met Ashton, poor goodness me, when I very first came to Hollywood, and he hadn't popped. So I'd already done a stage show
he
with
was
him.
just a pretty face.
He was just a pretty face, not a billionaire. And he, what was funny about that was going to say was I went into the reading, and you've got all the writers there, and there's like 8 writers. It's not just one writer.
Wow.
And you go in and you're saying the lines, and they're like laughing to their own lines, like, "Oh, we are so funny. I'm really so funny," but it was. And if it didn't land, then they just rewrite it right there and then, and that's why it's so.
It was
Those things are
punchy.
so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hmm.
What made you want to be an actor?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. We're going right in there, right?
Really? It sounds like the most as I was saying it, I was like, this is the most generic question ever. He's probably heard it a million times.
No, not at all. I mean, because I think as you get older, you kind of analyze it a little bit more, because I think that what has happened in recent years, that there's a very different approach to the majority of British actors as opposed to American actors. Okay, so as a British, I just want to say this, as a British actor, like, you never think you're going to make any money. You're going to be doing theater. It's going to be a miserable existence, and you do it because you love it, right? You never really think that you're going to make money from
So
it.
it's
And a
like
lot of,
comedy.
yeah, listen, and I do want to say this. I was doing a BA in performing arts and comedy. Stand up was one of the modules,
You could
and
study stand-up in college? Cool.
yeah, and I avoided it like the plague, because
Smart
it is
man.
the most difficult thing to do. It is. I said this to Gabe the other day, Gabe Eltab, and I said to him, "Look,
Oh, because his daughter is a stand-up.
his daughter's a stand-up," and
Yeah.
I said, you are the most naked on stage when you are doing stand-up. I am in massive admiration of stand-up comedians, like huge.
Yeah, it's like you're just flying in an invisible plane or something. I don't know, you just feel, it's like that constant falling off a cliff feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do it. It filled me with anxiety. I was like, no, it's bad enough in the UK when you're doing Shakespeare and you stand up there and you start doing Shakespeare and you can see everyone mouthing the words, right? When you're doing it, you're like, oh no, like, I better not mess it up because everybody knows it. But it, over in the US, the good thing and the bad thing about the US is that you can walk off the street and become a massive star. So it can be good and bad, because it's good because you can become a massive star, but it's bad because you have no formal training. So like, getting somebody to hit their marks and say their line is a disaster. And that's why you see a lot of big directors getting, because people go, well, why do they have all these British actors in to play these roles? And it's like, because we hit our marks. It's really,
You know your shit, whereas I think about the people I did improv with at the Upright Citizens Brigade, a lot of them got plucked out, into different roles, like Bobby Moynihan, Aubrey Plaza was somebody I did improv with, and that's the thing is, like, I don't know how much real acting training you really necessarily have to have. You could just get in one of these improv classes and get on a team, and like, whoop, you get picked for SNL. You get Aubrey got picked for doing Parks and Rec. She, they kind of hobnobbed with the right circles. So
there's a lot of that, but yeah, I mean, and for British actors, like, improv is like the emergency exit, right? Like you forget your lines, right? Because you're doing a play, like you're doing, let's say, Hamlet or Romeo and Juliet, and you forget your lines, and you got to BS for like the next 10 minutes until the lines
You're
come
like,
back.
what would Romeo say in this situation? You'd be
Exactly.
like, Juliet, just therefore art thou. You could just get down there. Use thou knees and thou mouth.
Yeah.
And, do what thou must.
Yeah. So it was a part of it, in the same way, like that, the part of the training, same way that stand-up wasn't for me. But back to your original question, I think it was because I was a bit of a dreamer, and I watched Star Wars when I was a kid, and I think, because I come from like a kind of rough background, which is, a council estate in the UK, which is like the projects. And I loved America, and I dreamt a lot about going to America, because it was this like place, this magical place. It's a magical place. It's a great place, a beautiful place.
It's full of illegals. It's still beautiful.
Full of illegals, not for long. They're going, Chrissy. They're going. But it was a dream, and I think I had a little bit of escapism back then, and I'd go and watch movies. And, I mean, I remember I must have watched Back to the Future like 1,000 times. And that idea of, that truck that he had at the end, and, what 1950s America was like, it was just also magical. And so I was like, okay, I'm in this kind of dream world. And when I was growing up, it was really rough, right? So there's no chance of that happening, right? Ever. But I was an avid reader. I read, my reading age was way above, it was 3 or 4 years above my actual, just because and I still do this now, Chrissy, like when my sister would come home, who was 3 years older than me, I'd read her books. And so when I ended up going to school, I was already ahead of everybody.
And you were like, why am I into girl books? You couldn't figure it out why.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know.
Like, why am I into Twilight? I can't figure it out.
Why do I like sparkly things and unicorns? It's
Lisa
crazy.
Frank. Yeah.
No, but so, I could retain information, right? So I just, from a young age, they go, oh, Matt can remember the lines. So,
Cool.
Get up front, say your lines, and you've got the role. And then as I got a little bit older, it was like, actually, I'm quite good at this.
Cool.
And yeah, and then eventually the big thing that broke me out was I got into something called the National Youth Theatre, which, for people that don't know, it's like Daniel Craig went there, Helen Mirren went there. It's a Orlando Bloom, like it's a who's who of actors. Like if you get in there, that's the stamp of approval.
And how old were you when you got into there?
15.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Who encouraged you to apply to that?
Well, it was like kind of the shining city on a hill again at school. When I was at school, they were like, there's this thing called the National Youth Theatre, and you can go off and do it. And it's like these summer courses, and you get to go into the West End of London. And I was like, all right, I'll give it a go. And you had to do one contemporary piece, one classical, and then you had to sing. And I did that, and I got in.
What were your picks? Like, do you remember what you did?
Yeah, I did. Are you familiar with an actor called Stephen Burkhoff?
No.
Okay. You'll know him when I tell. So do you know Beverly Hills Cop?
Yeah.
Remember the first Beverly Hills Cop? So do you remember Victor Maitland, the guy with the weird... Okay, so his name is Stephen Burkhoff. And because he was a very practical guy. He said, I'm not getting enough work, so I'm going to start writing plays. And he wrote these plays that were very, it's what they call physical theater. You know, it's very big, it's amazing stuff. And so I chose a piece from one of his plays called Harry's Christmas. And then I did the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet, you know, but soft.
Were you Romeo or Juliet?
What, you know what? Right now I could play Juliet, couldn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I did that, and then I sang Music of the Night from Phantom of the Opera.
Cool.
Yeah, and I got in.
Wow.
So then that was because it's very much a class system over there. So I was kind of like, I'm never going to make it, you know, it's never going to happen. And then
Because you're a young black boy from a tough neighborhood.
yeah, exactly. I was, yeah. So I kind of, yeah. And then when I was, I had a kind of a weird little career trajectory there. So when I was 16 years old, you did ask, right? So I'm going to tell you. So when I was 16 years old, I was entered into my mom entered me into a modeling competition. So I was on,
Cool.
believe it or not, she entered me into a modeling competition. I was a finalist. So at 16, I was on the first cover of my magazine, National Magazine, which was kind of weird. When I look back, I'm like, huh. And then when I was 17, my mom entered me to another one. We had no money. Like there was no way that
she was pimping you out. It was very smart.
Me out, and I love her for it. and so then I went off and I to pay my way through college, I was modeling. So what I would do is I'd go and do commercials because I was an actor, right? So I'd nail the commercials, and yeah, and I was doing a degree in performing arts, and before the end I was getting all this work, so I dropped out, and then I got my first proper audition. I got the third biggest show on British television, and then I got this show called Coronation Street, which was at the time, Chrissy, if it was like 19 million people watched that show.
Whoa.
19 million. So it went from nobody knowing who I was until I couldn't walk down the street the next day. It was insane. And I won this.
Wow. Ooh, I just thought that was a sex toy.
It is, but shh. No, that's like the National Television Awards for Best Newcomer. So I won that, and then I went off and I had a music career for a little while. Signed with Columbia Records.
Wow.
Did you know that?
No.
Did you know I sang with Beyonce? See?
I did read that in your bio.
There you go.
Your bio.
Okay, yeah, no, I did that, and then I did a movie with Michael Caine, and that's when Hollywood came.
Michael Caine, you did a movie with Michael Caine.
Do you know what? You know what the funny thing is, Chrissy? We're sitting at a table reading, and I grew up hearing that voice. Right? It's just so iconic. For Brits. So iconic. And I'm sitting there, and we're doing the table read, and I hear, "Juno, you gotta go, blah, 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 blah." And I went, "Oh, that guy! Oh, it is him. It is him. It doesn't sound like it is Michael Caine." Yeah, he was amazing. And then I came to America and got Black Hawk Down, and that's it. That's my trajectory.
Up at a young age.
Yeah, relatively. Yeah.
And you were like, did you keep a sense of humbleness because of your upbringing? Like this could disappear at any point, or did you get a big head at any point?
Oh yeah, no, I always thought it was going to go, and I never believed it. I never thought that it was real. You know, every step of the way. I mean, I remember, you know, there are moments in your life where you go, I need to like look around and take this in. So, you know, I remember being over in LA, and firstly going to LA, amazing, right? Back then it was just incredible. I had a convertible car, I was driving around, you know, Beverly Hills and everything, and I get a call from
What year is this? When was LA really good?
2000.
Okay.
Yeah. 2000 was awesome. And I remember getting a call, and they were like, "Hey, listen, Ridley Scott and Jerry Bruckheimer want to meet you tomorrow." And if you heard that line,
I guess
That was my ass puckering. That was my ass puckering up. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Because I like, Jerry Bruckheimer did The Rock,
Whoa.
and Ridley did everything, did Blade Runner. And so, yeah, I mean, going in there, and it's funny because I see someone said something about P. Diddy. It's kind of a funny thing because I was there, I got a job, and then I went away. So Black Hawk Down were in Morocco for 6 months. And then I came back, I got a TV pilot, and then I got Helen of Troy, and I went to Malta for 6 months.
Wow.
So, yeah, I was never really, and then I got Anacondas, went to Fiji for 3 months. Then Resident Evil went to Mexico City, so I was never really, for those, formative years, and I think I'm very lucky because that's when I met my wife, and I had a reversion to my faith around that period of time. And that's actually an amazing story as well.
How'd you meet your wife? I have a question before that. So when you're on like location, you're like 3 months here, 6 months there. Do you actually get time to see the sights, or is it all just work?
Sometimes, yeah. I mean, like when we were in Mexico City, I went to see the pyramids and everything, but I had to have a bodyguard because even back then they said they might,
because you were so good looking, and they went.
I know he's
I'm a model, never a child model.
Because I'm really, really good looking. No, it was just because they didn't want me to get kidnapped. Yeah, when I was in Malta, I saw a lot of the sites there. Fiji, same thing. I mean, Fiji, I got like 2 weeks off, so I went off to a little island and went diving because I love diving. Cool. But a lot of the time they're like, you can't go anywhere because if you get injured and you put our production behind, we're in deep trouble. So, it's very kind of controlled in those instances, which is understandable. It's understandable because if I get injured, which has happened, that's $100,000 gone in a day for shooting. So you have to be, yeah.
You can't just go hang gliding. You can't just join a rodeo.
No, I went shark diving in Fiji twice, and they nearly shit themselves.
In a cage? Were you in like one of those cages? Okay.
No, you
don't
put
need a shark costume on. I did springboard diving. I just kept it in the air. I wasn't big of a
Were you a diver?
Yeah, I was a Division I in college.
Get out.
It was like I did it from like 10 years old till 21 till I graduated college. It was like I was obsessed. I was like third in the state or whatever. Like I don't know. I was pretty good at it. It kept me off the streets. I too was a young black boy from a rough neighborhood.
Well, it's funny because I used to, for me, that is again, it's a terrifying thing, right? I mean, when you go up on that top board, my son, my 18-year-old, he was on the Rose Bowl swim team. So I'd go there every day, and I'd run the Rose Bowl, and then I'd get back and pick him up. And then I'd see the divers doing the high dives, and it was always super impressive to me. So, kudos to you. That's super cool.
Well, we just I'm from New York, so we just had really springboards. It was like 1 and 3 meter, and then I didn't go off the platforms till I was 14, and I begged my parents to send me to this diving camp in Indiana, and that's when I started to learn platforms. But I never competed on platform.
Have you seen that girl who does she's on Instagram and she does the super, super high boards? And I'm like, that's another thing. I had to get over that. Yeah, I had to get over that, a fear of heights. And I did that by jumping off a cliff. It didn't fully work, but
you're still alive.
I am, barely.
How high was the cliff?
It was really high, and it was with it was in Malta, and I was with a German special forces guy. They have this group called the Kampfschwimmers, which is like the German Navy SEALs. And I said, I really want you to help me get over my fear of heights.
Cool.
And he said, okay.
You probably because they're German and that's their way.
Yeah. So he's like, now you shall go. You've no fear of heights because you're dead.
We will go on the count of 3. 1, whoosh.
Yeah, 1, whoa. And you're like, yes, and there was no cliff. I'm sorry.
But you lived, didn't you?
No, you know what he did? It's funny. He literally said this. He comes up to me and he goes, Matt, we are going to jump off this cliff and and this is for the pussies. You can jump here. This is for the pussies. This is for the ladies. This is for the men. And this is for the Kampfschwimmers. And he jumps off. I kid you not. I kid you not. And I was like,
He just left you
shit.
there?
Yeah, he left me. And he goes down. He was a former German Olympic, like 1500 freestyle swimmer.
Oh, cool.
And he ended up in, so he's like, and he's like, come on. And I'm like, oh, shit. And I had to do it, right? Because I knew,
He
you
would
know,
call
when,
you a pussy.
yeah, because you're around those guys, you got to like step up. It's the same thing when I went hunting. A friend of mine, I thought he was going to get me to eat the heart of the first deer I ever shot. And he wasn't.
my
He just wanted to
gosh.
shove it into my face. And I thought, oh, I'm going to have to eat this. And I'm going to do it because he's a Green Beret and he's going to be like, calling me a pussy for the rest of my life. So anyway, I did, but I didn't eat the deer heart, but I jumped off. Yeah.
Wow. What was this? Was it scary while you're in the air, or as soon as you jumped off, you're like, well, this is happening?
Yeah. I'm just like, well, whatever.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it. So whatever. I mean, it can't be that bad.
It probably feels like when you're at a water park and they always have the slide that's like a steep, like a basically
Mhm.
straight down, and it looks scarier than it is. I mean, like, and then all you have to do is just, then they have the ones that where you're standing in a tube and then your
Bottom
the
goes.
bottom just goes out from under you. And then your bathing suit just gets wedged up your ass, and you're like, you're going so fast. It just, and then sometimes you can feel the slats in the slide. It's like, da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. But you're
And
going
you're like,
so fast.
or when you come
Like,
out and you're
well,
like, if you put your foot down the wrong angle and it spins you around and you end up like, and you're like, I know my one of my kids did that and their bathing suit came off, and I was
oh
like,
yeah,
and I was
oh
right
yeah.
there.
I've gone to so many water parks because I have a 14-year-old stepson. So over the years, we've gone to a bunch, and like I learned a valuable lesson about, they have this, I don't know what it's called, but you're on like a little kind of surfboard, and then they keep shooting like jets at you. And then they have like an instructor at the front who's telling you, okay, this is what you do to roll over. This is what you do to get up on your knees on the surfboard. And you're in front of the whole like indoor water park. And this was
Yeah.
like a few years ago. I was like, oh, because I always have something to prove in front of a crowd. And I was like, well, I was a diver. I can do this. And so I'm just like doing all these tricks, and I just fell off spectacularly. Bathing suit gets wedged up my ass,
Oh
and I can't.
no.
I'm just flat, like like rolling around in front of families, kids. My whole ass was out. And I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. This is for kids. This is why grown women don't do the surf thing.
Yeah, and you had to do the different walk of shame then, right? You're walking
Yeah,
past and you're like, they've
I
seen
had to go
everything.
change my bathing suit and do my hair differently because I didn't want to get recognized.
That's all I could think about when I went and I had my shoulder, I had surgery on my shoulder because they thought it was a torn rotator cuff, and it was actually bone spurs, and they just cleaned it all up. But anyway, I'm sitting in the chair, you come to, right? And the doctor comes in, he goes, well, you didn't have to have operation on you. Your shoulder was fine. We just cleaned up some rather large bone spurs, but it's all good. And as he walks away, he turns around and he goes, oh, by the way, if you have another operation, tell the doctor that you're a bear when you wake up. And he just walks out, and I'm still doped up, right? Like, I don't know what day it is. And so anyway, cut to, 2 weeks later, I go back and see him. And he goes, yeah, everything seems to be healing fine, blah, blah, blah. And I say, oh, by the way, what did you mean by that I was a bear when I came out? What does that mean? I don't know what that means. And he said, oh, you started fighting, as you were coming out. And I'm quite a big guy, right? And I was like, and all I kept thinking was, they've seen my meat and two veg. That's all I kept thinking. Is they've been flapping out in the wind for everybody to see. And I'm like, oh, no.
Wow,
Oh.
how fun! You're
Well,
a
I'm
bear.
glad-
I know. I didn't know if that was like a gay lingo or
I
something.
know, like well, I think a bear is, but that's not what it.
Yeah.
You are such a bear when you come out. Oh my gosh.
Wow. Okay. So that's, now that I know this, how did you meet your wife?
All right, so I was doing Helen of Troy in Malta, and I'd said, you know what, I'm done. I'm like, I was. It's so funny how you look back on your life and you go, oh, you're such an idiot. I was like, that's it. I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. You know, I'd got everything. I was with CAA. I was with the biggest agency in the world. I was making good money. I was, the lead. I wasn't Helen, but I was Paris, which was, it was Helen and Paris, the two leads in that show. And I'm like, I'm going to just resign myself to be single for the rest of my life. I really thought that. And they tell me, they go, hey, listen, this is one of the benefits of being an actor, Chrissy, is like they'll turn around and they'll say, okay, we're going to teach you how to ride a horse bareback.
Ooh,
and I'm like,
cool.
Okay. And they go, this is the horse, Dragon. I kid you not, like Dragon. And it was like pitch dark black horse.
Ooh.
Like evil looking horse, right? Like, I mean, beautiful, but evil, you know what I mean? It's like black horse. And the guy is from like Eastern Europe, and he says, okay, this is how you get on the horse. You have to, grab the mane like that, and you have to swing your hips up, get close, and get on. I was like, okay. And I managed to get on.
Just like with a woman. Yeah.
Exactly. Just grab them. And a car went by and backfired, and the horse threw me. No. And I landed like super hard. Like if you guys have seen Gladiator or Gladiator 2, I was there where they filmed Gladiator and Gladiator 2, like right next to. So you can imagine it was very dusty, very hard. And it knocked the wind out of me. And I was like, I've done some damage here. Like, and we hadn't even started shooting. I'm like, this is a disaster. So I go to the physiotherapist and he says, look, you need to go to Pilates. So I go to Pilates. And I meet this guy. I don't know why. Like, I
really,
don't know why
it has. You were like, it has to be Pilates. Couldn't it be something a little manlier?
I know, right? Okay, he told me to go to CrossFit. No, he told me to go to Pilates, and the Pilates instructor was a dude, and he was a British guy, and we got on really well. And he goes, "Hey, you know what? There's a party tonight. You should come. There's this girl you should meet. She's really beautiful. She's a ballerina." I'm like, no. I've sworn off women. That's it. I'm not dating anybody. And he goes, oh, you should come. It's at your hotel, And I'm like, whatever. So I go back to the hotel, and later on I can hear the party outside. So we'll go downstairs. And I walk up and I see him. I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, oh. And literally the crowd partied, and there was my to-be wife. And I went, look, it was like that moment on, the bit in The Mask. Kunk.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, that's it.
Oh wow, that's cool. Love it first sight.
Yeah, and that was it. And I knew, I really did know.
She an
I was
actor too?
No.
Oh, a civilian.
She's a civilian. She's not a maniac. No, she was a ballerina.
Oh right.
And actually, she'd been injured, and she'd gone back home to recuperate.
Which is nice because she was easier to catch because she was injured.
Exactly. I was like, don't you dare run away. But yeah, no, and that was it. And that was the beginning of that and a bunch of kids. So which is kind of crazy. Yeah.
So are you you were with her like so basically like kind of like the bulk of your career in Hollywood, or kind of towards the middle, or?
Yeah, no, I mean it was, so I'd done Black Hawk Down. Then I did this thing called Legacy, which was a pilot, and then I got Helen of Troy. So from Helen of Troy onwards, I was with her.
Why did you think you were going to be single forever before that?
I mean, I got to tell you, I don't know if people are dating right now. I think what it was back then was I was really, really well known in the UK, like really, really well known. And the trajectory in my career at that point was that I was going to be really, really well known here. And so I was like, I'm never going to meet anyone that is authentic, who is going to want me for who I am, like as a person. It's going to be like, showbiz and, and all that. And I'd experienced that in the UK. And it was just like really miserable. It was a really miserable experience. So I was like, well, I'd rather, I can't take the superficial people, so I guess I'll just be alone. And I really thought that was going to be the case, and thankfully it wasn't, and it ended up being the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, what a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think when you are single and in show business, so it is easy to
Oh,
just, you keep a partner really shows you who you are. Whereas if you keep going on first dates all the time, you can kind of like never really be held accountable. You don't have somebody there to show you like here are your patterns, and you don't have somebody to kind of like encourage you and be a partner. You miss out on a lot.
yeah, and especially when you're in that sphere, right? So I'd done Black Hawk Down, and it won 2 Oscars, and I was at CAA, and getting all the attention. Like I was reading for the Justice League, I was reading for Superman, I read for Superman, and so you're like, that there's in LA, in Hollywood. You're out there though, right? You're out in Hollywood
I've
for a bit.
I've been to LA once. I'm going back again actually, like next week to do a couple of shows.
Aren't you doing someone's podcast?
I'm doing a couple podcasts and another bigger
Ah.
show that I can't mention yet.
Okay, but you'll go out there. It's changed slightly now, but there was certainly kind of, you got to remember who was in Black Hawk Down, right? I mean, if you look back at the cast, it was a who's who of people that are going to be somebody. Early on in the career, Orlando Bloom, Tom Hardy, Eric Bana, just done a couple of movies before then. Nikolai Waldo went on to do, Game of Thrones. I mean, there was a lot of very young up and coming actors on that. And there was certainly kind of like a vibe around it when we came back from doing it. It was like, the guys that were in Black Hawk Down, this movie's going to be massive. And the word, the word gets around, right? So you get people, and I was very naive, right? Because I came and I was like, okay, I'm at CAA, so what? And I'm like, no, that's a huge deal. And there's a lot of people that want to get in there, and they'll see you as the conduit to making that happen. And I'm just like still naive, like, oh, everybody's nice and everybody likes me because, I'm a nice guy. And it's not like that. And it took a real long time for me to get my head around it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I mean, it's like, you have
Yeah.
the same thing. And if you're a grounded, authentic person, that when that realization hits, it's really isolating. You know what I mean? Because you're looking around, you're like,
Yeah, you don't know. Everyone's got an ulterior motive. You don't know, like everybody wants something from you.
yeah,
Um, and then right, if you're a guy, you have to be so careful, like not to get baby trapped, not to date a psycho who's gonna videotape you in your sleep, or like whatever happened to that. I mean, Trevor Bauer, I think he was like this famous pitcher. Some woman like accused him of like domestic abuse and like punched herself in the face a bunch of times to frame him and like ruined his career. And then right, or you could have somebody like lie to you, be like, oh, I can't get pregnant, just let it rip, buddy. And then and then they just,
yeah.
there's so much to be worried about, especially if you're a guy like the big career, you're like making a lot of money. It's
Yeah, but also, I mean, if you're a beautiful woman like you, I mean, then that's another level of difficulty, right? Like, are you being treated seriously? Are you being, are you being elevated because of your talent? Do these people want something? Because I always used to say this, like, it doesn't matter. I'm 6'3" and 230 pounds, right? Like, I'm not going to be overpowered, right, by a woman. I'm not going to be like, oh no, but women, that happens, right?
a
Like,
trans woman maybe, but this is
trans
before
woman,
that time.
that's a man, baby. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's, in equal measures sometimes. But it is difficult for dudes. I mean, now, I mean, I don't even know how you'd even navigate that. I feel very sorry for young men out there. But also I think, through that period of time, there were really good movies getting made, and even like the crappier movies were really still kind of good movies.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
I
Like
remember there'd be several good movies that would come out every year, and that was
Yeah.
just how things were.
Yeah, and now it's like you got your gigantic ones filled with like malignant narcissists in them, and who hate you. And so you're like, do I really want to go and be, lectured to in the movie theater, or and so they've kind of killed it. And what it really was, I started seeing the change in that, towards the end of the 2000s, going into actually around when Obama came in.
Yeah, like
It started changing.
2010s,
Yeah.
2015 maybe.
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, so there was certainly, I started seeing a change in the scripts, and I'm like, I don't want to play that role. I don't want to
You
play that role.
you
I
saw
don't want to play that role.
so you saw it in the scripts first.
Oh, I saw it in the scripts. Yeah. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, I started seeing it, and this is what people don't realize. I always wanted a career where I was picky about what I did. You wouldn't think it looking at my resume, but I actually was. And then you get to a point where you have to take these roles because your agent's finally going to go, dude, you're costing me so much money. Because if you aren't producing, you're like, okay, I'll do it. And so you go off and do a movie, and then you wait. And very oftentimes, you're right up there, for another movie, and it can be the difference between, being a massive success and,
Oh,
plodding on to
wow.
the next
It's a
one.
crapshoot, yeah.
It is, yeah, yeah.
So you could take a role being like, "Oh, I gotta take something," and maybe that leads to something else, and then maybe you get pigeonholed into something you don't really wanna be for your career.
Yeah, I mean, or the other way, which is certainly what they're doing now, is if you won't take it, if you don't take the role, then what happens is you lose standing, like you're not worth as much in the marketplace.
Oh,
Unless you're
wow.
Daniel Day-Lewis and you just turn around and you go, I'm just going to go and be a cobbler for 6 years, and then Martin Scorsese begs you to come back. But for most people, and this is how the cancel culture in Hollywood, why it's so insidious, because it's not just about not getting work. It's about if you don't get into a certain caliber of movie, then your monetary value drops. It's funny because I've got someone here who says, picky, get the F out of here. Here's the thing. If you go back to the movies that I did, right, in my early career, Chrissy, so I did Black Hawk Down, which was $80 million movie, won 2 Oscars. Then I went and did Simon Kinberg's first. Simon Kinberg did all the X-Men movies, wrote Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I did his first ever job with Jerry Bruckheimer. That didn't go. Then I did Helen of Troy, which was $17 million television, 2-part series. Then I believe after that I did Anacondas. The thing about Anacondas was I didn't want to do Anacondas, and because I didn't actually like the first movie. But can you remember who was in the first movie?
No.
John Voight, Ice Cube, Owen Wilson, J-Lo.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, it was. So what people don't understand is everybody wanted that movie in Hollywood. Everybody wanted that movie because it didn't matter how bad it was. The first one made everyone a star, and that's the way they look at it. So it's like, who's going to get the role in this movie? John Voight, yeah, as well, if I didn't say John Voight. And so when that came along, I was like, no, and I was testing for all these other things. And my agent called me up and go, hey, listen, they want you for Anacondas. It's Fiji. It's a ton of money. Do you want to go? It's Thursday. I was like, okay.
Like, you had me at Fiji.
Yeah, it was Fiji for 3 months. And there comes a point where you're like, okay, I'll go to Fiji and I have a great experience with great actors. And it was number 2 at the box office, So, and that took, quite a bit of money. And so after that, then I did Resident Evil Extinction. You're not going to turn that one down. It was, it's one of the biggest franchises around, up until the modern franchises. So again, that I got to work with Russell Mulcahy on that, who directed Highlander. You're not going to turn that down, So there are certain elements and the reasons for why you do and you take certain roles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
what was your favorite thing you've ever done, TV or film?
That's a hard one.
Or if you could pick a top 3.
Black Hawk Down was very was a big deal, because it was my first movie in Hollywood. It changed my life working with the special operations guys, and that has affected my life ever since. So that was really special. Rambo, obviously, being a part of a franchise that I grew up loving. And then, you go into that. I was actually meant to take over the franchise, and Sly changed it at the end. But so I enjoyed doing that one. A third one, you know what? I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that I've done. I mean, the movie that I wrote and directed, called I Am That Man, that was kind of a special one for me, because everyone says they want to make a movie, and me and my business partner said, let's make this movie, and we just went and did it. Like 2 weeks later, we were in production. So I
Wow.
wrote, directed, produced, and starred in that, and so that was really.
You're a real Tommy Wiseau.
No, it's one of those things where I'm just, when things come from like necessity,
Mhm.
you got to get it. This, you'll say, okay, well, I'm doing the comedy, but how can I get the comedy out there to more people? I'll do a podcast, I'll
Right.
reach out, and it's just smart business people do that. And now, not everyone has the talent to be able to do it like you do. But for me, it's always been, and I think if you say like you're from that kind of little bit of a rougher background, you're like, I'm going to fight. Nobody's going to outfight me. Nobody's going to outwork me. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
that's the difference.
Wow.
But, I enjoyed doing Atlas Shrugged. I enjoyed doing Two and a Half Men. I enjoyed doing, there's a lot of them that I really loved it. I really love doing NCIS. I did an episode of NCIS because back then, you didn't do television because television was like, meh, you don't want to do television. And I did that, and that is one of one of the fans' favorite episodes of NCIS. So that was nice as well. So yeah,
Wow.
I mean, yeah, just very happy, content. Yeah.
Cool. Mr. Goodnight is wondering, did you get a chance to visit Ramstein Air Base in Germany?
No, I did not. I did not go there. I would like to have. I've been all over Germany.
That's cool. That's where my dad's from. I've
Really?
never been. Yeah, he's from a town near Munich. It's real long. God, I can't remember it. But it would be cool to go someday.
Munich's, really nice, actually. When you go in, if I can remember correctly, because I went there years and years and years ago, when you fly in, they have green roofs, which, you don't normally see when you go in there.
Green roofs?
Yeah, the roofs of the houses are green, if I remember correctly.
Okay, Ober Ammergau is where he's from.
Oh, I have no idea.
It's in Bavaria.
Here's the funny thing: the Bavarians are the ones you want to hang out with because they're the ones that drink.
Oh, he drank.
True. They're the party animals, man. You want to be with the Bavarians.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that explains so much.
Yeah. Oh, someone just said this. Can I just comment on this? Because someone just said about David Crusoe and his sunglasses. So I did an episode of that's CSI Miami, right? And I think that, when you're a British actor and you're going on set, like you kind of get a little bit more respect. You know what I mean? Then it's because people go, oh, well.
Because you sound respectable.
You sound smart. Dumb as a box of rocks, but sound.
The British accent makes everyone sound better.
Yeah. So I go on there and David comes up to me and he goes, I'm not going to do an impression of him, but he explains to me why he takes his glasses off. I don't know if you know this.
I don't know this.
There's a whole thing. Albert will be able to tell you about it. Like, it's all about like the way he takes his glasses off. And he explained the whole thing to me, which was really, really sweet. But I always had a good time on set. I don't think I've ever had, I maybe had one like difficult time, but I just don't tolerate assholes. So, he was really, really nice to me on set, but he came over and was like, when I'm doing this role, like people know when I take off my glasses that something's up, like Horatio knows something. And I'm like, cool. You know what I mean? It was just nice. It was nice. And and then you speak to people who love the show and they're like, oh, he's taking his glasses off. He knows something. And I'm like, oh, there you go. It's kind of funny.
I have to look this up. Hold on. David Caruso sunglasses. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna bring this up.
It's a whole thing.
It is a whole
It's
thing.
like when you do it, like, when you're on the set, you're just doing your work, right? You don't even. What is this?
Okay.
Means we got to drive by.
Drive by Miami style, aren't they? Who comes, Alex? Was the mob sent to draw us to the crime scene? Or sent to destroy it?
All 3 stories, get up and run away.
You do? Got something to hide. Listen, I don't want you to worry about it, all right? Mr. Coleman? Because I'll be your memory.
He knows. He
I don't know,
knows.
he's missing from the scene. Maybe he took off.
Wow, it's 3
Or
minutes. of this.
maybe he got taken for a ride. Second, will she?
Bryn said she came down to drink mojitos and catch some sun.
Well, it looks like something caught her.
All right, one more.
He died hours before this accident ever happened.
So our accident is not an accident at all.
I could just watch that. the whole
It's
time.
kind of
That's
funny.
fun.
Yeah, and that was shot in LA, actually, not in Miami, but they make it look like Miami.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was quite funny. And here's a little bit of trivia. He was in the first Rambo. He was in First Blood.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
A lot of people don't remember him. He was like, I knew that guy. Do you remember the first Rambo?
Yes, vaguely. I did see it.
There's a lot of people on here that will go, oh yeah, I know it. So there's a part in the first Rambo where they pick up John Rambo, and then they're doing a search on who he is, and he won like this and that and this and that and how many Purple Hearts. He goes, I knew there's something about that guy, something like that.
Wow. I want to rewatch it now.
Yeah. Well, you need to watch mine, right?
Yes, I do. I need to. I'm gonna have a whole night with my husband where we just watch everything you've done. We'll probably gonna need many nighs. Enchiladas, great conversation. Thank you, enchiladas. Thank you for the yellow boy. Okay, now which brings us to something very interesting you said in a DM, which sparked this whole podcast idea. Because I posted that after Easter, I'm going to convert to Catholicism, like the baby's baptized Catholic. My husband's whole family's Catholic. I was raised Methodist, but I was like, you know what? Catholics seem like more hardcore. They seem like more about it. And it seems like the way to get, like to have a closer relationship with God. And I've just always been curious about it. And plus, so I'm like, I'm going to do it. I'm like convert. And apparently it's not that hard if you're already baptized. So it's not like I have to go to CCD with the other 14-year-olds. But I don't know. I'll see what that process is like.
That'd be a great comedy sketch, wouldn't it? Like the camera pans over, 14-year-old, 40-year-old Chrissy, like,
wouldn't that be great? And I'll be like, oh, look, I'm just here so I can wear the outfit. And then you said to me that when you got deeper into your faith, there was a bit of a backlash from the industry.
Yeah. So actually, the way I got back into my faith was actually, if you want to hear it, if you want to hear it, it's a very, very interesting. I think it's a very interesting series of events. So I was doing this pilot. So imagine this, just got the biggest show, right? Black Hawk Down, 2 Oscars. And then I get this Jerry Bruckheimer show where I'm the lead in it. And it's, it's going to pop, right? And I get a knock at the door and it's really late at night. And my co-star, Bethany Joy Lenz, who was on One Tree Hill for years, she goes, hey, I just want to give you something. And she gives me this book called The Case for Christ, right? And I was like, that is just so random. Like, that's not what you're thinking is going to happen when you get a knock at the door in
No.
your hotel suite at 2 a.m, you know? And I was like, okay. And I sat down, I started reading it, and I ended up just reading the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I
How
got
random. Like, did you two even have a conversation about that?
no, it was totally out the blue. And what there's more to this relationship like later. So I read it and I'm like, and we went our separate ways. We knew that we were going to probably do the show together because Jerry was getting everything on right now. He did all the CSIs and Without a Trace and everything. And so I was like, okay, well, this is going to go. I'm going to see Joy again. But I was like, okay, I need to really look into this because this just makes sense. Like Jesus is real. Like it was growing up. It was always like this kind of like nebulous kind of like, sky person that wasn't really personal to me. I didn't really get it.
It feels far away.
Yeah, it just wasn't like, personal to me. And when I read this book, The Case for Christ, I was like, okay, well, I've got to start like getting my act together, right? Like because I think that people think, oh, Christianity is a crutch. And I'm like, actually, no, it's not. It calls you to live your life in a better way, right? And so I start, looking into it. And anyway, cut a long story short, I read The Case for Faith, The Case for the Creator, and The Case for Christ. Read them all, and I was like, okay, all right. And I just kept looking. And the thing that really changed things for me was I read Thomas Aquinas. And Thomas Aquinas was just like a nuclear bomb going off for me. It was just like you can prove there's a God without talking about the Bible and through logic and reason, right? The 5 proofs for the existence of God. Massively compelling. Felt a little bit betrayed because I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me this before? Because I was like, there's got to be a reason why we're here. And then so what I did was I started looking, I was like, well, which church am I going to go to? Then I read a book that said where you got the Bible. And what a lot of people don't question is there was no Bible for 300 years, right? There was no Bible for 300 years. And most people don't.
What did people swear on?
Huh?
What did
yeah,
people
exactly.
swear on?
No, they did. This is the thing. And so I was like, okay, how can sola scriptura be true? It can't be, logically. And Jesus said, thou art Petros, and on this rock I build my church. So I was like, okay, what is the original church? I'm like, oh, it's the Catholic Church. Darn it. Like, I got to go back to where I kicked and screamed and didn't understand any of it to get away. And then the more and more I looked into it, the more it made sense. And then I met my wife, and we were like, okay, we're taking this really seriously. We started,
Was she religious too, or she just went with you?
She was like, she's Maltese, right? So they're like culturally Catholic. So kinda, but not really hardcore. And I was the one that was like, I told you before, I read a lot. I'm like, you should, this book's amazing. Like, it says this and this and this. And she'd be like, just tell me what it means. And I was like, okay, she's gonna be bothered. Now it's the other way around. And I warn you now, like, you'll get there when you're trying to figure out how to raise your kid, right?
Whoa.
Because you're like, hang on a minute, like, I've got to figure this out. Like, how do I tackle it? Like, what is the right way to do it? Like, you can't send your kid to a regular school anymore because they're going to indoctrinate them and ruin them.
Gay. Yep.
Yeah. Make him gay. What is it? What's the thing that Cartman said?
Right. Lame and gay, or like put a chick in it, make her
put a chick in it, make it lame and gay.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I've got to be open to life. So 8 kids later.
Wow.
And that was the point. It's funny because when I started getting into my faith, number one, I was kind of like, this is what I was saying about the P. Diddy stuff. Like, so very early on, I was off the market, right? So I wasn't going out to anything. I was with my wife.
How old were you when you got married?
It was, it's 20 years ago this year.
Oh, yay.
I was 32. So, yeah. So, and that's amazing, right? That's like 100 years in Hollywood years, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people I know have got married a couple of times before. But so, I started putting that central in my life, and that meant like turning down certain roles. And then you kind of start interrupting your trajectory, especially if you look at, and again, people don't realize this because they go, oh, it's bullshit, whatever. But it's not, because if you're not at the level where you don't have to take those roles, right, then that's fine.
Right.
But if you are at the level that you've got to take the roles, right, you look at those, the kind of questionable roles that big actors have done to get, like, full frontal nudity, sex scenes, things that are antithetical to your faith. And so if you turn around and say, I'm not doing those, then that might be a $25 to $50 million movie that you're going to be the lead in that you're not in anymore.
Oh, wow.
And that goes to somebody else. So they take your spot, right? So now they're going to be in a bigger movie. Well, they're already marketing that movie and you for your next job, right? While it's in the hopper.
Yeah.
So you lose
Wait,
momentum.
what is a hopper?
Like in the hopper, like, ready to go. You got a bunch of things like in the hopper ready to go. You know what I mean?
That didn't
like,
it. Like is it like an oven? Is a hopper is like
no, look, when you've got your paintball.
Okay,
gun,
like a gun. Okay.
What's
like
the thing on
load
the top?
It up.
The top is a hopper, and you put things in, and then the balls go. It's like you got your ammunition, whatever, ready to go. And to think popcorn machine. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, so anyways, then you lose momentum, but also you're not going out here. And then all of a sudden they go, hang on a second, you got 4 kids. What's wrong with you? Like literally, like, what is going on? And then of course I had after I did Transformers, which, was really annoying because they messed up my, my credit on Transformers. So it's just like, well, it was in my contract to be called Captain Graham. So if you look on the special features in Transformers 2, my name is Captain Graham, and they messed it up on the actual real credits, which says SAS number 1, which is like second spear carrier on the left. It's like,
okay,
you don't want that, right, in your career, but it was what it was. But then in 2010, I had a hit piece written on me by the Huffington Post, and that's when everything just went like that.
Why?
Yeah.
Or what led to that?
So I got asked, this is again like no good deed goes unpunished. I got asked by a bunch of guys if I could go with them and help them raise money for a movie. It wasn't even for mine. It wasn't even for anything for me. And I was like, yeah, I'll come and help you guys. And I turned up to the thing, and it was the CMP. It was a like political event. And I wasn't political at all back then. I was just like trying to focus on my career, my life. I was figuring out God. I was, I got a lot going on. And then that article dropped, and it was like, actor hides right-wing views. And that was like.
So how did they figure out you were right-wing from helping some guys make money for another movie?
Because it was a conservative event that I went to, and that was just not done.
Oh, wow.
You don't do that. And that absolutely, when that happened to me, and a bunch of work went away. And so the next movie I did after then, so I think I just came off the biggest movie in the world, and I should have had a bunch of offers, regardless of whether someone had seen it or not, because they see you in the movie and they're like, okay, see that you're in the movie. The next role I got was James Taggart in Atlas Shrugged, which was a year later. And that was just a significant slowdown in the amount of offers I was getting, and, the projects, the level of projects that I was being offered. So,
So what year did that? What year did that?
2010.
2010.
So, what you got to remember is I did Rambo, right? 2008. It was, again, one of the top grossing for its week. It was a really big movie. And then I can't remember what I did after that. And then I did Transformers. I was on that for a long time. And that should be like that. The way that my agents changed initially when I got Transformers after that. Oddly enough, nobody wanted me to do Rambo. They laughed about me doing Rambo. And then, that was the dip. And it never really recovered, because it was well, you can see now, like people are being more emboldened, so they tell you about how they feel. Certainly about conservatives and about Christians. It doesn't mean, like, it's not enough for you to say no comment. I don't want to be involved. No, you've got to endorse it. And so then the next one was, I was like, fuck it, I'll double down when it came to the jab.
Yep.
And they were like, you got to take the jab. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. You're not forcing me to do it. Like, this is a freedom issue, and I'm American, and there's no way in America you're going to force me to do something that I don't want to do. And I'm like, well, I may as well like doubly screw my career, because at that point, you had to take the jab through SAG. They said you had to do it.
Okay, I was gonna say, who's telling you to take it? Was your agents, or they said just everyone?
No, it was a requirement on set. And the funny thing is, I kind of squeezed in Reacher. I did like the first season of Reacher, and I kind of squeezed that in. That was right at the end, like at the beginning of the end of the pandemic. What I mean by that is like the beginning of the pandemic, but before you had to take the vaccine.
Okay, so like 2020, basically.
Yeah.
Wow. What was your process like for realizing you weren't going to take it, and then how did you tell people, and then what was the reaction from your, I guess, colleagues? And
well, what I started seeing was very, very strange reactions on social media first, right? So initially I wasn't against vaccines at all. I was like, why would I be against a vaccine? I've had all these vaccines. And then I got COVID. And then the natural logical progression from that, which has been for time immemorial, as far as we know, is that if you have something, like you get a cold, immediately after you have the cold, you have natural immunity. Or, the flu, you have natural immunity afterwards. So I had COVID, and I'm like, okay, I got natural immunity. And then everyone kept trying to tell me that I had to take the vaccine. And I was like, no.
Like, I made it. I got it. Yeah.
This is illogical. I'm immune. And then they started bullying. And then I started seeing, and I hate that. Like, again, if you come from a little bit of a rougher area or a tougher background, bullies get smacked in the mouth. So I was like looking at that, and I was like, no way. And then I saw them bullying people that didn't have a platform, or like, they had smaller platforms, and they were like, I don't want to do this. And that really riles me up, right? Like, I don't like people being taken advantage of who can't defend themselves, or they call a pylon. And I got broad enough shoulders, like I don't give a shit. Like, I'll because some dude in a basement. Like, here's the thing. If I would have even got in my life, Chrissy, one movie, I would have considered my life to be a success.
Wow.
Right? Just one.
Yeah.
Just one. Or even one play. I would have done what virtually nobody else around me has achieved.
Sure.
And so for people to come up and start saying, oh, you're a nobody, you're this, that doesn't bother me. Like, I don't give a shit.
Right. You've done like everything you've named are like the most well-known projects. Like, everybody knows the stuff you've been in.
But Chrissy, what is your crowning achievement?
Me having a kid.
Exactly. So I have 9.
Yeah.
I have 9. I've been married for 20 years. My mom was a single parent. I come from nothing. I live in America. I'm an American citizen. I've been in the zone for the past 25 years. Like, there's nothing they can say to me. There's nothing they can say to me, right? Because the biggest, my priority is my family.
Yeah.
So in all honesty, I'm very, very grateful that I've got the opportunity to do Black Hawk Down and do these other movies and have a career. But that is not what makes me who I am. So I don't define myself by my career or my money, or any of these other material things.
And no one can take your family from you, like that.
Well,
nobody
not
can't.
try.
I mean, yeah, like you can't, audition poorly or whatever. It's solid. Your family is, it's what you built it up, and you.
I have broken the cycle, right? And for anyone that's been through that situation, who comes from a divorce background or a single parent background, I've beaten the cycle. So, and the things that matter to me are, can someone turn around and say, he's trustworthy, I trust him, he has my back, he's a good man, right? Not like, oh, he got 6 Oscars. Who gives a shit about that? It doesn't matter. And now more than ever, these things just really don't matter. So I looked at this, and I was looking around, I was seeing all these other actors, and I'm actually finally going, you guys are disgusting human beings, right? You're bullies, and I don't want to be anything. I don't want anything to do with you. And look, it's hard because you just want to do your craft, right? Like, you just want to do your craft. You know this. You want to go to the comedy club. You want to get up there. You want to do your thing. You want people to applaud. You want to make people happy. I mean, there's nothing like with me. I want to make movies that entertain people. I don't want to make a movie that preaches to someone.
Yep.
That's what I want to do at the end of the day. And I just want to do my job and go home. Right. That's all I want to do. It's not what defines me. And so when the COVID thing came out, I really thought that was a moment where we were facing real tyranny. Right. It was looking bad, certainly in California.
So scary. It was like people forget we were a sneeze away from vaccine passports.
Oh, there were people grassing on each other if you had more than 4 people in your house. Like, I mean, this was like serious. And I remember watching Jordan Peterson before this, and Jordan Peterson said, you guys, everyone thinks that they would be against the brown shirts. Everyone thinks they would stand up against Nazis. But the truth of the matter is you would tell on your neighbor or whatever, and paraphrasing. And we saw that, right? I mean, the thing that pissed me off more than anything was, I remember going to Costco, and I'd see like one Chinese woman or Asian woman with
patient zero, we like to call her,
with like this many toilet rolls.
Oh,
I'm like, what are you doing? And I never, even though I got a bunch of asses to wipe in my family, we never took more than what we needed.
Right.
And you know what? We did all right. Right? We did all right, because guess what? Toilet paper's only been around for 100 and odd years. You're going to figure it out, right, Chrissy?
Yeah.
You're going to figure it out.
Sleeves if it gets really bad.
You know what? Whatever. Get a hose pipe. It doesn't matter. But the point is, that really worried me, because it really showed the selfishness of people, like and what they would go to preserve themselves. And that's when I went, I'm selling my house in California. I'm moving to Texas.
Wow.
And that's what I did. And I don't regret it at all. I really don't. As it ends out, I'm not a doctor, even though I played one on television. But I was right about the vaccine.
Yep. Wow.
So
when did you move to Texas?
I moved here 4 years ago.
Okay. Wow.
Just after.
Did you like lose a lot of friends, colleagues? Like, was there like sort of backlash? People like talking shit about you, that kind of thing? People like stop returning your phone calls?
Yeah. I mean, but there were some that were like, why don't you care about people? Like, you don't care. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I do, actually. But and the funny thing was, all I'd say was, it should be a choice. That's all.
It's a medical procedure. It's a medical product.
And so I had some people that were, I'm really lucky. I've got some great friends. So number one, the majority of the friends that I have didn't take it. I did have some people reach out to me, which it's in equal parts frustrating and also nice, that I'd get actors reach out to me and go, dude, I've totally got your back. Like, this is awesome. Carry on. I'm like, well, do you want to step out and say it as well? Because I'm on my own. Right. And they carried on. No, they were like, no, we'll still make 100.
Safe. We'll wait till 2025 when it's safe.
And then we'll be really brave and come out and talk about it. Right. Like that is a frustration of mine, to be honest, where people are like, yeah, I'm for Trump now. I'm like, where were you when they wanted to spit on us? And I mean, it's just so
useless.
cowardly. But on the same kind of theme, I'm welcoming people who say, made a mistake, right? If they're genuine about it. But like, all my family took the vaccine. All my wife's family took the vaccine, apart from us.
Did you guys
And
try to stop them, or you didn't know
yeah,
they?
yeah, I did.
Uh,
I said, please don't do it. Please, please, please don't do it. I said, none of this adds up. And then the thing for me, Chrissy, you'll get this, right? Do not mess with my kids. Do not tell me I've got to inject those kids. Like
oof.
in the same way, like do not tell me that my kids are going to war for something that I do not believe in for a corrupt country. It's not happening. Like you will have to kill me to get to them.
Yep.
And that was what they started doing. Kids don't. So here's an interesting thing that happened. Let me tell you this. So this is a very interesting thing that happened. After I got sick, I was the last one to get sick in my family. Two of my kids, well, let's put at least three of my kids or four of my kids had no symptoms at all, like nothing. So there was an opportunity for us to go and get, to look at our antibodies, right? And we could do it anonymously. And so we went to this place and we're like, okay, let's check all the family's antibodies, right? So there's a lot of us. I think then there was like, I think it was 6 kids, 7 kids. I'll lose count of my kids, right? 7 kids. So that's 9 of us. And we do this antibody test. Now, you're meant to have like the old antibodies, which are like, you've had an infection and they're your soldiers that stay in the background, right? Ready to go, right? And that means you've had an infection back in the day. They're ready to go. Then you have the new soldiers, right? There's just after a new infection and there they are, right? They're there. You've got the old soldiers and the new soldiers now because they're building up the antibodies. I had the old and the new. My wife had the old and the new. 3 of my kids or 4 of my kids had the old and the new. No symptoms. I can't remember whatever the the split was. But interestingly, who's now 18-year-old and the baby had the old antibodies and not the new ones. So I'm like, hang on a minute. So if they had the old antibodies, not the new ones, that means that they were infected early, showed no symptoms, we didn't know, and then they got over it and didn't infect us.
Wow.
Right? And then we all got sick.
And didn't give it to them.
Yeah, and they didn't get it. So I sat there and I'm like, oh, okay, right? That's very, very interesting. So I'm going with natural immunity like all day long, right? It shows, because remember, it was like highly contagious. Like all you got to do is fart next to somebody.
Yep, you got to wash your groceries.
Yeah, you got to get out your like Clorox and you got to wipe down your bananas. And you're like, whatever. And then I was like, well, it clearly can't be that contagious. It can't be. And then they started saying, well, I know kids don't have, they're not infected or they don't show symptoms, but they should get vaccinated too. And I'm like, are you going to do that with everyone? And of course, then the Daily Mail and the Sun and the British tabloids like ran a bunch of articles because I was saying like, it's really stupid people wearing masks. It's like, trying to stop a mosquito with a chain link fence. I mean, all these things, that these are just common sense. And we were berated for it, right? Berated for it. And I was like, you know what? There comes a point as a man, I'm not talking any kind of like scientific depth or anything like that. I'm just talking absolute common sense.
Yeah, but people were bullied out of their common sense.
And sometimes you just got to go. Yeah, sometimes you just got to go, I'm not doing it. And I was genuinely concerned that it was the beginning of something way worse. And I'm like, I can't do this. Like, I'd rather.
It was scary. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather them get me than my kids. So game on.
Yeah. You just like held the line. And people like you, that's what made the difference, the few that were fighting back.
Well, I think what it did was there was a lot of people out there that felt lonely and alone because like their whole family had got the vaccine and they were pressing them to do it, or and that was the thing that was really quite amazing to me, and that's what got me.
You were muted.
Did you mute me?
What happened?
Okay,
Okay, what about now?
Can you hear me?
Oh no, what happened? What happened, Matt? Oh no, no. Welcome to mime time. Let's see what happened here. Can the chat
One,
hear
two, one,
Matthew?
two. Oh, there you
Oh,
go.
so I just can't hear him. Well, I'm gonna have to read lips now.
I could say a lot of
Let me
things,
leave
couldn't
and come
I?
back. Take it away, Matthew.
Okay, right. And welcome to the
Da-da-da-da.
Chrissie Mayr podcast with Matthew Marsden. I'm taking over the show, babies. I know I'm not as good looking, but just bear with it. I am funny. My kids tell me so. Lots of dad jokes. So, well, that's great. Yeah, it's like, let's go for the most obvious. Plug in your headphones. No, it's a really funny thing when you end up finding people that. Here we go. Are you back?
Works. I'm back.
Yay!
Hey. Where were you?
Oh, I was saying all kinds of bad things about you.
Oh, good. They're all true.
I haven't asked you anything. Do people ever ask you questions on this?
Oh yeah, all the time. And sometimes I'll just interrupt people's interviews and talk about me for the whole time, and then I look back and I go, stupid, stupid. It was supposed to be about them.
No, but you know, the thing is that I think that you're a very interesting person. So people, you know, want to hear about, obviously that's why they're here, but they also want to hear about you. And like, let me ask you a question. Why stand-up comedy?
Oh, it's weird because the two things that people are most afraid of, heights and talking in public, were the things that I love to do, and like with diving and then stand up. I was raised in kind of like a passive aggressive, tense household where I didn't feel like I could tell my parents really how I felt, or my siblings, but it was just kind of like tough German immigrant father. Like, if you're cold, tough shit, throw on a sweater, nobody cares. You're hungry, big deal. Like, it's just like, not that we were poor, like we were genuinely middle class, not like Kamala Harris middle class, like actually middle class. My dad was a landscaper who drank, and then he lucked out because he had a truck driving license. He got a job as a teamster when I was in high school, and worked on Sex and the City, Manchurian Candidate, like all these huge films and TV shows. Like what was the one about firefighters with Dennis Leary? That was a big one.
Oh yeah.
I went to the wrap party for that, and I was like in awe. I think
That was a really big show. I mean, it was critically acclaimed as well because if I remember, darn it, what's the
Rescue
name
Me.
of it?
Thank you.
Rescue Me.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's
Yeah,
really
it was
cool.
Great show.
And he was just very mild mannered. And I remember being, I guess I was in my early 20s, like still really finding myself like doing improv. And I remember like walking around with him, like at the craft service table, wanting dad to like introduce me to people. I'm like, help me network. Like, I really thought the way in was to be a PA. Thank God that didn't happen, because the PAs work grueling hours, and it would have been creatively so stifling, and not led me to where I'm at now. But that was neat. It was like a little, and he was so lucky to get that job. There's no way they could have afforded the three of us to go to college had he not gotten that job. So anyway, but yeah, tense household, and I just felt like I thought I wanted to be a news reporter. So I interned at Dateline when I was in college, back when they were if people remember Stone Phillips. He was like the main guy, and then I was like, oh well, this is horrifically boring. And then I interned at Conan when he was still in New York, and that was awesome. I was like, okay, comedy, that whatever I'm doing, it's going to be related to comedy, because these are my people. This is fun. I feel like you can just be yourself. And all the writers were like, well, do improv. So I did a little improv in college, graduated, did improv for like 5 years, UCB, Magnet Theater, one woman show. Then finally I was like, all right, I can do stand up, I think. And I started stand up like 2010, 2011. And I just felt like the stage was the only place I could be totally honest, because I just felt like if I was honest at home, I was going to hurt somebody's feelings, and they were going to sort of treat me differently, I guess. But yeah, I felt like I had to tiptoe around everybody's emotions. My dad, because maybe he was an alcoholic, And then like my mom and sister, because I felt like I was kind of responsible for their entire emotional like well-being, really. So my brother just kind of kept to himself.
Yeah, your brother was like, I'm not getting involved with all this drama.
He couldn't wait to get it's funny, like, when you, he couldn't wait to he was the oldest, and he couldn't wait to as soon as he graduated, he had, like, one job in New York. He was an engineer, but moved out to Vegas, like, moved the fuck away, like, from New York to Vegas, and then looking back, you're like, "Oh, he really wanted to get away," because there's jobs you can find locally, and you notice, like, the further people either wanna go away for college or move away to get work is, like,
You're like,
usually.
oh, I can't make it for the
Yeah.
holidays.
They
I
usually
can't
just
make it for
wanna get
Thanksgiving.
the fuck away from the family dynamic,
Yeah, it's funny because, you said earlier on, I didn't know whether you were referring to like, like growing up in a poor household or in a difficult household. And I think that it's very easy for someone to, think that you've got it all right. You got the Porsche on the driveway, or, you got the Mercedes, and the kids are going to and it's just completely dysfunctional. And the kids in that situation are horrible. They're in a horrible situation. And, I think a lot of the times, I mean, like I said before, like I was a bit of a dreamer, and I wanted to, I was like being in a fantasy world. I think part of that is because, it's funny because I watched this thing with Gene Hackman the other day when he was talking about his dad. Did you see this?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. So he's probably 50s, 60s, and he's being interviewed by who's that guy now? James Dodson, is it, from Masterpiece Theatre? Like, I mean, the Actors Studio. Is it James Dodson?
Oh. Inside the
You know
Actors
what I mean?
Studio?
Like the guy with a beard inside the Actors Studio.
Yeah.
And he starts asking him, he goes, so your dad left you? He goes, yeah. I was like,
James Lipton.
James Lipton. I love his tea. James Dodson. Who's James Dodson? I don't even know what that is. There's Dr. James Dobson. So anyway, Gene Hackman is there, and he asks him, he says, hey, so, I heard your dad left you when you were young. And he goes, yeah, I was like 13 years old. I was just playing with my friends, and my dad like pulled up in his car and he waved at me. And Gene Hackman starts getting emotional, right? And he says, and then he just left. And I never saw him again. It's an amazing, he goes, sorry, like it's only been like 36 years. And the thing is, I always say this, when it comes to being a dad, I never had one. So my bar is very, very low. Like it's super low.
You never had a dad?
No, my dad
never
was
knew him?
No.
Wasn't around. Never met him.
Well, he came back, like he was out of my life, and he came back maybe when I was 8, and then left again, and then sold his story to the newspapers, which was awesome. And then
he sold a story to the newspaper?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, classy guy. But I think with men, like men deal with it differently. Like for me, I was like, "Fuck you," you'll never beat me. Like you'll never knock me down. I'll never bend. And that was my attitude. But I think that, and when he died, by the way, he died a few years ago, and I actually got to forgive him. I got to call him up, even though and I'm like, I forgive him. But it was a similar reaction. Like I won't go into it, but it really welled up a lot inside of me that I didn't think that I really felt that. But I think that it affects people in different ways, right? And like I said, when my kids, I always tell them, look, I have a very, very low bar. I'm here, right? Like I'm here. So I'm already winning because I'm here. And I think a lot of people like punish themselves because they're like, I don't know if I'm a good enough parent. Am I doing this right? Am I messing them up? And certainly that, I'm sure that you're going to be going through a lot of that reassessment, right? I know you said you got a stepson, right? Like you go through that thing and you're like, hang on a minute. Am I making the right decision? I don't want to be like them. So am I going too far this way? And it's, you know, it's a constant thing. And then what you throw into the mix is different personalities, right? So like my 18-year-old is very much like, he will never be broken mentally.
Cool.
Like he's one of the toughest kids I know, like steel trap brain, like so mentally strong. I think a lot of that comes to, he was a swimmer, right? So since he was 6, he was swimming. So he was in his head a lot when he was swimming. Very mentally strong. And then, you know, my other son, the next one down, is a little bit more sensitive. He's a little bit more melancholic. He's like the artist, you know? And so I can't talk to him the same way that I talk to my 18-year-old. I've got to adjust it. And I think that having all those kids allowed me to appreciate and be more tolerant with people and personalities. And I think that, you know, as you go through life and you have someone else that you love more than yourself, and I don't mean like, oh, I love me, but like, you know, you're like, well, I'll go get my shit together today, you know, I'm gonna go into this, and then you have a baby and you're like, okay,
everything changes, for the better. But you're like,
nothing
oh, I would.
matters.
The second he came out, like he's in 11 months now, but like I remember while I was giving birth, like the moment he was out, I was like, oh, I would absolutely take a bullet like right now for this kid. You know, like just you feel like you're being thrown like warp speed, like through a portal. It really like feels. I mean, birth is so humbling, but you just feel like transformed spiritually. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, and I think that I know a lot of women are like, don't talk to me about, you know, me being attractive when I'm pregnant. And most guys will be like, you know what, I hate to tell you, but you are like super beautiful when you're pregnant. Now, don't get me wrong, you know, women bloat up, you know, there's all that. It's not about that. It's the fact that what you go through is like, if you look at dudes, right, you can measure dudes by like, especially like this, if you look at like Spartans, right? You look at the Spartans, the reason why the men admire the Spartans is because the grueling things that they went through to achieve what they achieved, right? And so I think there's this kind of thing in men where they look at women and they're like, you're carrying that, and then you're going to give birth, you're basically going to pass a bowling ball. Like it just puts, it's a different kind of respect, and it's also a different kind of love, right? It's a different kind of transformative love, I think. And again, you know, you also have that, like, there's no way that you are ever going to harm my child. Like, I will kill you if you harm my child. And it's just like this. It's like, I'll go and eat a pizza, but my kids aren't eating that pizza. Or I'll go and eat like this shitty food, but like, hey, don't eat that. You know, and it just shows. That's how objectivity comes in, right? Like, you can have real objectivity when and this is one of the good ways to make boys, like, you know, there's a big thing on pornography, right? Like, people going about pornography, and one of the great things that you if you tell somebody who's into pornography, say, would that be okay if it was your sister?
Oof. Yeah.
Okay, well, if you say yes, I mean, and I know there's a lot of comedy that goes on here, but this is serious. Like, if you say yes, then you have a big fucking problem, right? Because that's not, or your
They have
daughter.
a whole category for that. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? There's a whole click down menu for that. But you know what I'm saying? So I mean, it really is it really does change you, and having that objectivity, because all of a sudden, like, you're not here, you're there, you're thinking about someone else more than you, especially because they're so helpless.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the big calamities of society, not having a lot big families, is that lack of connection, lack of understanding of other people. And also I remember someone saying, Chrissy, I kid you not, they said to my wife, you are so selfish having so many kids. I'm like,
I used to think that many years, like probably my 20s when I was an idiot. I used to think, because some people do have kids for selfish reasons, but when you become a parent, like, you realize, if you're a good parent, which I would say like most people are decent to good parents, that's not selfish.
yeah, I mean, having a big family, that's selfish. That means, like, you know, my wife has to go through all these, she's given birth 8 times. That's selfish, is it? Breastfeeding.
That's so selfless. Breastfeeding is legit a full-time job.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, and then it's that, like, women, especially women, because dudes are kind of different about it, right? I think, like, men, so kids learn their identity from their fathers, right? They learn their other soft skills from their mom, but they learn their identity from their dads. That's why, like, for the most part, men want to impress. That they go through that stage where it's like, oh, I love my dad. My dad's awesome. Then it's like, my dad doesn't know shit. I'm better than him, and I want to fight him. I want to be king. And then later on, they go, my dad's my best friend. I want to be around him all the time. Because hopefully that is hopefully the way it is. And so it is one of those things where, especially if you come from like a dysfunctional background, and you come from a dysfunctional background, you got to try and like navigate that and figure that out. So you bring well-adjusted kids into the world, and they become productive members of society.
Try to figure out what's going on in your family and break that cycle. Our parents are always just there. Once you figure out, like, they're just people who did the best they could with what they had at the time, and not you want to do better than not, like, from an egotistical place, like, I'm better than you, like, I'm going to make more money, or I'm going to be more educated. You just have to try to heal old wounds. Like, I think my dad, German immigrant, his dad beat the shit out of him, and my dad passed away like a year and a half ago. He was murdered. It's a whole thing. I don't know if it's a whole nother episode, but in the aftermath of that, I've become closer with his brother, his sister, and so my Uncle Tony was telling me like things I didn't know about my dad. Like, he was like, because my dad is the oldest. And like my Uncle Tony was telling me, like, one time, and like hearing the way my uncle would rationalize, like, my dad's, like, their father, my grandfather, like the violence, like, oh yeah, one time, our dad was disciplining Frank, and he just like broke a broom handle over his back or something like that, and he's just talking about it like it's nothing, and I'm like, oh, he got his ass beat on a regular basis, and it's like, and then it puts it into perspective, like how my dad was, and like the demons he battled, and like the things, kind of like the work that was, he was not an introspective guy. I think, boomers never go to therapy, don't expect that. But like, you realize, okay, here's what he was dealing with. And
maybe he couldn't go there, I mean, look, I mean, I'm very much from the kind of old school, in the UK, like, you go down the pub with your buddies and you talk, through your shit with them. And then that was your therapy session. You'd get it over and done with, and then you'd move on, and the world would be okay. And I think sometimes, that was a release. And when that goes away, when you don't have that, and very often, if you look like something like your dad, he came over, it's a different world. He's creating, his kids don't understand where he came from. I know all this, right? My kids do not understand my upbringing, right? They could never understand my upbringing. And as they get older, I've seen, like, I saw something the other day when I was talking to my 18-year-old, like, I saw his eyes change when he realized, because he's getting to be a man as well. And you remember, like, all you do is you see your dad like that, right? Your dad's like this. And like you said, he's not a person, he's your dad, right? He's not an individual that has to go through difficulties, and you just think about their relationship to you rather than anything that happened to them before. And again, look, in an ideal world, you are meant to shield your kids from that. And that's why I say, like, for me, I have a really great relationship with my wife, and I've really, really worked on. I think part of it as well is, like, as an actor, you kind of have to work through these things. You work through the characters, you find certain things in characters. And I actually think that the more tragedy you've kind of had in your life, then that makes you a better actor, because you can draw on it more. Like, that's why I think the great comedians make such great actors, because they're so dark, right? They have that a lot of sadness in them, and they want to make the world happy, right? That's what they want to make the world happy, because if the world is happy, then I'll be happy. And I think, that's a lot of the time you see that with actors. They just want to be somebody else. They're okay if they're somebody else. And that's why I think you see a lot of tragedy in a lot of actors, or the way that their kids are. The majority of Hollywood actors' kids are complete disasters.
Why are they such a mess? Like, look at Will Smith's kids. They're wearing castles on their heads. They're that, or they're either all made to be trans. Like Charlize Theron, isn't she? She's currently transing all her kids. A lot of them are.
Yeah, because I think that there's this, I kind of have a theory about it, that they don't want to be the bad guy, and they don't want to tell them no, right? Because maybe something happened to them in their own lives, so they want to say, it's just the same. Enabling people is cruel, right? It's not love. Giving someone everything they want is not compassion, right? It's just not. Giving an alcoholic a bottle of wine because they asked for it is not a good move, right? You're not helping them. So, you have to be confident in yourself enough to turn around and weather those storms, right? Weather those, I hate you, Dad, and you're like, okay, I know you do. Listen, I've had moments where I'm like, when I didn't have a dad, and I'm looking, I'm going, I've been to every single one of your games. I've been to every single one of your swim class. I drive you here, I drive you there. I'm there, I've put you to sleep. I'll get, multiple different times. And then you get the backlash. And when you don't have a dad, and you don't, or you don't have that kind of regular family structure, you're kind of like, it's me. What did I do? When the truth is, that's what teenagers do.
Right.
And they do it to everybody. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it's a rite of passage. And I'm very lucky that I have some really, really terrific friends that I can call up and go, hey, I'm struggling with this right now. It's personally painful to me. I know it sounds like, oh, meh, but this is, the time to be concerned about whether you're doing something right or wrong is parenting your kids, right?
Yeah.
So if you don't have a roadmap to follow, you're kind of figuring it out. And I think that's why you see a lot of people with big families, the adult child, the oldest child, is jealous of the youngest.
Yeah.
They're jealous of the youngest because the parents have figured it out by the time they get to number 6, they're like, okay, I don't need to worry about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a thing. You got it all coming.
But then the oldest gets more freedom. There's perks to being the oldest.
Yeah, there is, and they're normally, very strong-willed, and it is classic. And I mean, I have to be very mindful of my kids, because if any of them are quiet, then they tend to get lost in the mix, right? So you have to deliberately go out and give them attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to girls, one of the biggest mistakes that men do is they're not tactile enough with their daughters and tell them enough that they love them. That's a massive mistake, right? You want to hug your daughters.
Learning the French braid, or
I don't know about that.
Parties.
I cut that. No, but and not Joe Biden style,
right? No sniffing.
I'm just saying, hold your daughter's hand and give them a
being
hug,
sweet.
and do those things, because they will look for it in somebody else. And so, there'll come a point where, and I know this, my daughters will be they're comparing whoever's coming to their dad.
For sure. And as somebody with a ton had / got over a ton of daddy issues, your dad is the first model of what a man should be. And if that's not right, you're gonna have no anchor. You're gonna have no idea how to choose a good man if you don't have things right with your own father. And it's good. I mean, I was lucky. I eventually found an amazing man, but like it took a while. It took till I was like 30, right?
Yeah.
30, 31. So
And you're lucky that you got it
yeah,
then,
yeah,
because I mean, right now, I don't even know what to say. I mean, the good thing is the younguns are actually getting, young males are way more base now. Like they are
they are.
totally looking and they're like, no. And then you're seeing the young women, they're rejecting all this like Bonnie Blue, Lily Phillips bullshit,
Right.
and they're just saying no, So, there is, it swings and roundabouts. I mean, a lot of people are being like mortally wounded in their soul as they're going along it. But I think that, going back to Catholicism, the one thing that I love about it is it's just like it's mostly the most people in that faith, for the most part, will say, okay, I accept you where you are. You know what I mean? You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to pretend to be perfect. Like, I mean, I've been faithful for some time. I still drop the F-bomb. I don't know if you've noticed. I still make crude jokes. I still do. And my friends go, okay, because at the end of the day, there are other things that are more important. You know what I mean? There are other things that are more important. And
Yeah.
I think that's quite something.
Yeah. For sure. Oh my God, I missed a couple of super chats from Von Beowulf. Kudos for having a spine during the scandemic, both of you. So many people rolled over to the tyranny, but a brave man or woman only dies once. Deuce Vault.
Nice.
Thanks, Beowulf. Oh my gosh, look at the time. We could easily do this 4 times over. There's so much to talk about. You're so easy to talk to, Matthew. You're the greatest. Thank you so much for coming on. So interesting, your whole story, and I feel like there's more stories in there. We should do this again.
I'd love that.
Tell the fine people where they can follow you and what's coming up. I know you have a YouTube page that they can subscribe to.
Yeah, I kind of like a friend of mine like kept urging me to do it, and I was like, no, no, no. So I do a live stream. Normally it's Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Monday and Wednesday it'll be like 12 p.m. 12 p.m. like so noon Central Standard Time, and I just talk about whatever, and then one session on Sunday, and normally. Sometimes I do that on a Friday at the same time. I know I'm not being very, precise about these things, but I have to move it around. I got a bunch of kids. I've got things I'm doing, so I do
Aw.
move it around. But I'll talk about everything. Talk about the proof of it for the existence of an immortal soul. From that to what Trump's doing. Everything. And you can find that on, as you can see down there, Matthew D. Marsden on YouTube. Matthew D. Marsden.
And Twitter.
The Twitters.
The Twitters,
So-
not calling it X. Sorry.
I can't do it. It's hard, right? It's like, find me on X.
No, it's like, look, I joined Twitter in 2007, okay? Until and it's been Twitter from 2007 till what? 2023, 2024. Sorry. Maybe if it goes another 20 years on X, maybe I'll change my
Yeah.
mind. But no,
Maybe, but probably not.
probably not. Lucifer the Doberman, congrats on 100K subs. Now you have one of my favorite people on your show. Keep being
Oh.
awesome. Thank you. And I liked this comment from Daniel Thompson, former Army here. We love Matthew Marsden. Oh, so much love in the chat. Thank you, chat. You guys were very well behaved today. Good questions, good comments. We will do this again. Everyone is a fan of you. And I'm only logging off because I know the baby's going to be hungry in 5 minutes and want his midnight snack.
No, I understand. And I just want to thank you as well for having me on. It's been a long time coming, and I'm so delighted to be here and to finally get to meet you, like in person, kind of. It was really awesome.
It was fun. Thanks, Matthew. We'll do this again. And thank you to everybody in the chat. And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.